This is how the average person spends the 24 hours they're given in a day. Looks messy, right? Well, this is how a high performer spends that same amount of time. So what's the difference between the average person who is struggling with a 24-hour day and a high performer who's thriving? I'm going to show you why this happens with the Arnold Bennett Philosophy. And I'm also going to share how you can lean more towards high performer tendencies, make the most of your day, and actually live in the 24 hours that you are given. What I'm going to show you was inspired by a book I was reading that recommended this book to me. I mean, I literally put this book down as soon as this one came in the mail because I was so excited to read it. It's called How to Live on 24 Hours a Day by Arnold Bennett. Bennett is an English author who passed away in 1931. But before he did, he was probably one of the grandfathers of personal development. I literally finished this book today, and the entire time I was reading it, I was thinking, I cannot wait to make a video about this. So before I share some of his philosophy and what you can do to thrive in a 24-hour period, I want to share what he thinks is the cause of the average person struggling with the same amount of time that a high performer has. So I'm going to assume you have a job like the average person. The average person works for a period of time in the day, usually an average amount of time of 8 to 9 hours. So let's say you are working from 9 to 5. This is the money-making block of time. So what Bennett says about this block is that although it is, a big chunk and right in the center of your day, it is actually only 1/3 of the total hours that you have. This is the same for an average person as it is a high performer. But where the average person goes wrong is where they allow 1/3 of the day to bleed into the other 2/3, the majority of the rest of your time. Here's what that looks like. While you might start work at 9 and you end work at 5, or I think I put it down to 6 here, but it doesn't really matter because it's all happening in that core area. Before you get to work, you're thinking about work and you're working on potentially doing some work and you're getting amped up to do your job today. And that's pretty much how you start your day. It bleeds into that space. When you get done with work for the day, you're still thinking about work. You haven't separated it from your life. So you're still kind of playing in that area in your mind. And especially if you have a commute, all of these things are blending together. You're having a hard time checking out. You're thinking about how much time you're spending in that commute. You're not using that time for something better than being bitter about this time. And what I love about how he describes this is he says that it's bleeding into the margins. So suddenly something that was only 1/3 of your time, when you factor in some sleep here, probably some crappy sleep, and maybe a little bit of sleep down here, you sleep up here, and then you're waking up and maybe you get a couple minutes to yourself, but not a whole lot before you're already wasting the day away. And then you've got this space down here where all of this has happened, consumed your mind, and you can't think of anything better to do because you have to do it all over again tomorrow, and that's discouraging. So we just throw on some Netflix and let it ride. And again, work is consuming, so it just continues to bleed into everything else. You have the scaries during Netflix. You're not falling asleep soon enough because you don't want to get rest, because you don't want to get excited for the next day. And ultimately, something that should only be 1/3, this is 1/3, is now going out of this space into other areas that could potentially be used to your benefit intentionally and enjoyably. I have to read what he said about this. If a man makes 2/3 of his existence subservient to 1/3, for which admittedly he has no absolutely feverish zest, how can he hope to live fully and completely? He cannot. She cannot. While the number one excuse for not having enough time is that your job is taking away so much time, you're right, because you are doing what the average person does by allowing it to consume you. And when you do that, you are letting it consume the rest of your day. This is the part where you say, my boss likes to ping me first thing in the morning. This is the part where you say that I have to take my work home at night. This is the part where you say, I own my own business. It happens throughout the day. You're right. But if we looked at each of the things that we do, both excitedly and less excitedly, and said, I'm going to do them 100%, and intentionally, then maybe this wouldn't feel as all-consuming and it wouldn't bother you so much because you'd actually have other things you have going for you to look forward to. So what does this look like for a high performer? I went ahead and already kind of blocked out the basics, right? A high performer knows how long and when they're going to sleep. And they're going to do it to the best of their ability. So this has already been decided, and it is fully filled out, not because it's perfect, but because it is intentional. And we are going to sleep and we are going to wake up at a certain time, because we don't have to let our work that we hate consume our mindset and make us sad. We can wake up at 5 a.m. because it serves us, because we got our rest, and because there is something really good to do with that other third of the day that we want to make the most of. And you know what? This is why I think we hear all the time people who don't need 8 hours of sleep or don't need 7 hours of sleep, or say like, I've been sleeping on 5 hours for a lot of years and I feel like I'm pretty good. They may or may not be right. They're still alive. We don't know if that's shaving time off of their life, but there might be a reason for it if they're not overly stressed, and it's because they're getting the rest to the best of their capabilities, and the rest of their day is very intentional. Something else to keep in mind is that someone who owns their own business might have this work block because they know people are going to respond to emails during that period of time, and that's the socially acceptable time to be working and to be emailing and calling. But they may not be working a straight block of time. I do not get paid by the hour. I get paid for outcomes. So I might be working very intentionally for this first hour, and then I might have a shoot for these 2 hours here. And I might have to end the day with some admin here. I'm going to work less hours because my working hours are more valuable than someone who might be trading time for money. It depends. It depends on the situation. Like, I can't give you a direct valuation. But let's say that's not even the case. Let's just say that I just work 9 to 5. And the reason I'm going to say that is, even if I don't, even if sometimes I'm working a block up here and I'm working a block down here and working a little one here, and that they're valued what they're valued, or you have a job that's like that, the point still stands that it is an intentional block of time. I am not doing personal stuff while I'm working. I am working. I am not sleeping while I'm working. I am working. I'm not working while I'm sleeping. I'm sleeping. And I know that that time is going to come, and it is more time bound for me than my actual work is, because I want to sleep when it's dark outside. That's a choice I make. Again, this is all about choices. Oh my gosh, I can't stress that enough. So a high performer, even like, listen, there's going to be bleed. I have to commute. And maybe this is going like later into the day than I intended. Like I think I said 9 to 5 and I made it till 6, but the point still stands. We take that extra time. You still have this area. And what is happening is not, I can't be effective during those hours because it's not enough time. It's, I can't be effective during those hours because I am making the choice that my work is going to bother me throughout the rest of the time that is mine to own. A high performer is looking at any leverage they have, any. And this time is leverage to enjoy life, side hustle, spend time with family, do the things that you want to look forward to. And so what are those things? These are the nice things we do for ourselves to start the day on our terms. And this is the enjoyable hobby that I have. And I love it because it's summer outside and I want to read a book. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm enjoying it and I'm loving it. And I'm intentionally doing it. And I don't have to feel bad about it because I know when I'm going to be back to work again. There are moments for intention. What is the intention? What are you deciding to do with that time? So we need to get these other blocks of time. And again, less sleep if you want it, fine. Like if you have less work hours that are a higher valuation, then fine. Then you see more of this white space and you do something with it. If you work from home, you don't have a commute, amen. I know that that's hard to find these days. And if you have it, it's fabulous. You get that time back. You don't have to spend time in the car. But if you are spending time in the car, are you listening to something that's a positive and helpful to your mindset? What's the podcast? What's the YouTube video? You can listen to YouTube videos, by the way. I'm not sure if you heard. But how do we get this to a point where we are so happy with how we are intending to do things with our life, no matter if it's for fun or for work, that this green block doesn't bother us, it empowers us. The end time empowers us to draw that boundary. The start time empowers us to wake up earlier to focus on ourselves. It is so important that we remember that you don't need these huge sweeping periods of time in order to make a change in your life. It can be just the small pockets that add up over time. And I'm going to tell you why I know this is already true. Sweeping large periods of time do not make the greatest life. Because if you look at how your Saturdays and Sundays go, or whatever your weekends look like, let's be honest about it, okay? Saturday, you sleep in and you go to bed really late. Sunday, probably the same thing. And a little bit too much. Again, we're just too much sleep and we're tired. It's just like, oh, we're so tired. And not only that, we're so tired because the day is still somehow affected by work. Like there's no choice. It just keeps coming up, especially Sunday night. Especially Sunday night. This is what's called the Sunday scaries. And so you find yourself like, wait, this is supposed to be the huge amount of time that I was given in order to be able to feel like I can live. I'm living for the weekends. And you do try. You've got time with family and you've got whatever else it is that you want to do. And your kids are around. So that's just like always happening. And they're trying to come at you at this time too. And you got your kids and your family time. And you're like, oh yeah, there's that passion project I have. I got to spend the 45-minute nap on that. And your Sundays and Saturdays, it's not any better because it's so unintentional that everything's continuing to bleed together. And to Bennett's point, work that's only supposed to be 1/3. And it's actually less than 1/3 because it should be 5 days a week, depending on your situation, is now taking over your entire life. This is a mentality. To his words alone, he said this is an attitude. This is an attitude. You are letting this happen, not your employer, not your job, not your family, you. This is a decision. P.S. Oh, I need a new color. Red. The Instagramming that's happening in the scroll, like all the time. And then your mind is on that. It's just like, this is horrible. All right, what are we going to do about it? So here's what Bennett's tips were to reach this point of thriving with 24 hours and living. The first tip is already obvious. This is 1/3 of your life. So keep it at 1/3. Set the boundaries that it takes for that to be the case. No matter when this green time happens, then show that you will do it to the best of your ability and set the tone with everyone else that they can expect the best when it's time for it. Because that way you're going to take his advice on not bleeding into the margins. The margins are your life. So make the plans accordingly and look at them very, very carefully as to what you're doing. Bennett says, once you've decided to achieve a certain task, achieve it at all costs of tedium and distaste. The gain and self-confidence of having accomplished a tiresome labor is immense. Speaking from experience right now, I don't have a new color. Okay, I'm using pink. Like I'm working out in the morning and I don't enjoy it. It is a discipline. There is distaste. And yet every single time I'm done, the most confidence, completing a task, doing it because I know what's best for me and helping future Amy to be better. That self-confidence changes the game for the rest of the day. He also says the first business of the day is to put your mind through the paces. And I love how he phrases this because earlier in the book, he also says that reading newspapers in the morning is a terrible idea. Now, again, we're talking about a very long time ago. So the newspapers, what are your newspapers? Instagram, email, you name it. It's all about your mindset in the morning. How you start the day, how you think, that will dictate your attitude the rest of the day. Oh my God, this 60 pages of gold, people. He also says, the man who begins to go to bed 40 minutes before he opens his bedroom door is bored. That is to say, he is not living. So now we're talking about, you're like, I'm going to sleep for this period of time, but I'm going to think about sleeping up here. Like I should be going soon. Am I going yet? I don't know. I'm thinking about it. It's like, no, you go to bed. Brush your teeth and go to bed. That's it. The end. Like that's the time you've decided. So be intentional with that time. Now, if you're wondering what Bennett has to say about you being tired at 6:00 p.m., have I got a passage for you? What I suggest is that at 6:00, you look facts in the face and admit that you are not tired because you are not, and that you arrange your evening so that it is not cut in the middle by a meal. So just, hello, breakthrough. And also, maybe this is like American culture. I'm not really sure. But let's say we're having dinner at 7. You're going to have dinner at 7 and you're tired. because it's 6 o'clock. I'm tired. So I'm tired. And then we're having dinner because we always have dinner at 7. And then you're more tired, which is how we got down here in the first place. And those who are tired and not yet even in bed yet, you have basically decided I'm sleeping. I'm just not even intentionally getting good rest. So he actually says, do not break up your core section here with a meal. I found that really, really interesting because then you can look at this differently. Like, well, where are we going to eat? That would actually help us to thrive, to be able to get sustenance, but to also enjoy the time. Or maybe that meal really is the intentional enjoyment of the time. That's fine too. We're just so quick to say we don't have energy, but it's because everything is running into each other. We're exhausted because we're thinking about it so much and we're not looking at that intention where it needs to be. And the final thing that I'm going to point out in this book, although I just can't choose because there's so much good stuff in here, is that this looks very rigid. And a lot of people have said that to me in the past, that the way that I calendar block or the way that I plan, it just seems very rigid, seems very boring. But what's actually happening is when you have boundaries in place, when you have plans in place, and everything's gonna go wrong at some point in time. For instance, I'm actually recording this video for the second time today because technology, it sucks. Things are going to happen and then you have to pivot and adjust. You can't look at this as set in stone. Bennett says, a danger is being tied to a program like a slave to a chariot. One's program must not be allowed to run away with you. It must be respected, but it must not be worshiped as a fetish. A program of daily employ is not a religion. What we're actually doing, the times that you want to call someone out for having too boring or too rigid or too restricted of a lifestyle, hello, this is what keeps you in a boring, horrible situation that you do not enjoy. This dysfunctional, messy life that's not taking you where you want to go. So you're doing this not because it's going to be perfect every time. I don't get the same amount of sleep every night. I don't go to bed at the exact same time every night. I shoot for it. And by shooting for these intentions, things are always better than they were the day before. In the realm of time, there is no aristocracy of wealth and no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day, and there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely precious commodity as much as you will, and supply will never be withheld from you. No mysterious power will say, "This man is a fool, if not a knave. He does not deserve time. He shall be cut off at the meter." It is more certain than consols, and payment of income is not affected by Sundays. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future. Impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. If you are fortunate enough to live the next hour, it is kept for you. You cannot go into debt. I mean, this is incredible. And it is the meaning of what people say when they say we are all given the same 24 hours in a day. What are you doing with them? I was even more passionate about this video the second time I filmed it. I hope this gave you some perspective as to how your 24 hours may or may not be going the way that you want it to. And I think you'll really enjoy this very quick and easy read by Arnold Bennett. How to live on 24 hours a day is linked in the description down below. And if you want some more help with making sure you stay focused and intentional so that you can get things done, I've got another video for you to check out.